Hello, everybody. Welcome to the post-game episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the places at Hawk Blogger. Your Seattle Seahawks fall 27-24 to the Minnesota Vikings, who now move to 13-2, winners of, I believe, 8 straight. And we will talk about all the implications of this game as the Seahawks not only fall to 8-7, but fall to 3-6 at home on the season. One of the worst home performances across a season in franchise history. And while you cannot see him, Evan Hill is with us at Evan Hill HB. He's going to be on the phone talking to us, as well as Jeff Simmons that you can see at Real Jeff Simmons. And who wants to go first? Who wants to go first on this one?
Let's get Evan while we have him.
No, Jeff, you seem far more passionate in your reaction than I do, or at least far more frustrated. So you're going to be my therapist today, buddy.
Oh boy, that's not good for anyone. Yeah, it was such a frustrating game because look, they should have won that game. Like there was a lot of things they didn't do great, but like there's just so many little things. And if Byron Murphy doesn't face mask that guy, they probably win the game. Like straight up, it would have been 3rd and 19. Trey Brown with one of the worst sequences I've ever seen, where he lines up offside as a cornerback. I cannot remember the last time I've seen it. And then immediately he gives up a touchdown and 1-on-1 covers the next play. Those plays, Gino taking that sack on the second last drive. I know everyone's going to focus on the interception. The game was already lost to me at that point. Some people were mad about the missed kick by Myers. I was not. They would have made that kick if they don't take that. Gino takes it. And then ultimately throughout the game, Ryan Grubb was abysmal. He had a couple good drives, don't get me wrong, a couple good moments, but there were so many obvious. There's one where they're 1st and 5 after a penalty. They're moving towards scoring range, and they throw that idiot play where the guy's running around and they just have to run the ball. And then Zach Charbonnet and Kenny McIntosh on some of their good drives. How many touches did Zach Charbonnet have today? Brian identified with Ray Roberts where they're weak. There are lots of plays throughout the game where they hit on those runs and that big drive at the end of the game to take the lead. Even through all their mistakes, they managed to come all the way back. Barner gets the touchdown that probably should have won the game. Ernest Jones has a chance to catch that. He falls down. That's a tough catch while you're falling, but Byron Murphy's about to sack him. And it just felt like Seattle self-destructed. And that's a good team, Minnesota. That is a very good team. Seattle should have won that game. They self-destructed. It's a lot like the Rams game. And that's ultimately going to be their season. Gino makes some big mistakes. That interception he throws in the first half was just absolutely unacceptable. And Gino had a good game overall, but the sack on the second to last drive, he has 3 chances to get rid of the ball. If he throws it there, it's 2nd and 10, you move on. And I thought Ryan Grubb's play calling in that spot as well was awful. They set up a 60-yard field goal with a 2-yard pass on 3rd down. So they just self-destructed against a good team that was a winnable game. And they didn't do it. Woolen and Julian Love get beat over the top. But again, so many little things pile up and they toss away basically their season. Against a good team, that would be the signature win of the season. And they blow it again.
Evan.
Yeah, I think what is so frustrating about this game, and Jeff, you highlighted it well, is it felt so winnable in key moments, and it was disrupted by what felt like procedural issues. Like, how many false starts did the offense have today? Like, I think it was a record. I think they put it up on the screen. It was like 5 or 6. The offense in Seattle, it's just, and then the corner being misaligned. Like, but Jeff, my thoughts are all over the place right now. I wanted to add one thing to what you said. Inconsistent application of the run game. Ryan Grubb only calling 2 runs in the third quarter. It finally started to get going in the 4th quarter after he committed to it. But you know what an even bigger factor was? Gino clearly re-aggravated his injury. And they still weren't leaning on the run game. They still weren't doing it. So it's like completely contextually unaware of the scenario that they're in. So what's frustrating about this loss, guys, for me is like they clearly don't control their destiny anymore. They need the Rams to drop next week to the Cardinals, and they need to beat LA, in week 18 if they have a shot at making the playoffs. That's probably not even a worthwhile conversation anymore. This team is too undisciplined. They've been outcoached in too many scenarios. They can't put it together all in one game defensively, offensively. The Ryan Grubb struggles across the board. DK Metcalf, by the way, he's going to get some praise today. I don't think he deserves it. He's there's a good argument he's responsible for 2 interceptions today, or what should have been 2 interceptions, frankly. I hate the body language from him on that final drive or on that final play of just what felt like quitting on the route. I don't give a fuck if that's irrational. I didn't like it. And Gino, and by the way, Jeff, you said Gino had a good game today. I don't know if I buy that, man. Yeah, he threw 3 touchdowns, but the defense also dropped what should have been 2 or 3 more interceptions as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I qualify that as a good game, but it's just frustrating. It's really frustrating. They had so many opportunities to win this game. It would have been the premier win of the season. It just fucking sucks. So that's my irrational rambling for you, Brian.
Well, your irrational rambling is always welcome here. And just to clarify for folks, I believe that the way things stand right now is that if the Rams beat the Cardinals, then the Seahawks season is done.
Yes, I think that's correct.
That's my understanding of the situation. I haven't double checked all that, but that's what I believe is the case. And I think that there's plenty of criticism to go around. There's probably plenty of credit to go around, depending on how you wanted to allocate it. For me, what I really noticed in this game was that the defense, for me, of all of these issues, in key moments when you needed the defense to show up, they didn't. And I think that for me, ultimately, that was the story of this game. When you needed the best of Tariq Woolen, you didn't get it. He was beaten for key 3rd down plays. He was beaten on a number of situations. When you needed Trey Brown to come through, he was beaten. When you needed the defense honestly, guys, if you had told me before this game that the offense would put up 24 points unassisted without any defensive turnovers or short fields, I would have said, man, that is a lot more points than I think you would have reasonably expected from this offense against that defense from the Vikings. And the Seahawks defense should be able to make that a win. And ultimately they didn't. So yes, do I think that the Seahawks offense, had turnovers, and did the Seahawks offense leave points on the field? Absolutely. And we'll talk about that because I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying about some of the play calling. But I look at this and say, opening drive touchdown. I look at this and say, Reek Woolen giving up number of plays to Justin Jefferson in key moments. I look at this when they took the lead and the defense couldn't hold it. They could not hold the lead, immediately give it up on a drive all the way down the field. I think what I walk away from with this game is I don't feel like, man, you really blew a chance to have a signature win. I think it was just final confirmation of the fact that this team isn't interesting yet. It's just not there. All these things that we're talking about, the penalties, the play calling, the lack of, coming through, when your best players are beaten by the other team's best players in key moments. What I come away with is that Seahawks just aren't good enough yet. And that's a tough, bitter pill to swallow, but that's kind of where I left today with.
And I don't think that's off base, but the problem with that is the reason they weren't good enough is because they self-destructed. It wasn't.
Yeah.
If Trey Brown doesn't give up 4 points, the whole game is totally different. If Byron Murphy sacks them to win the game and the defense stands up, or Ernest Jones catches the ball right in his hands, a lot of things you said aren't really in place. So I think ultimately you're right. I think big picture, And I think Dana just said the same thing in our chat. Like, does it really matter if they win the division? Like, they're not good enough. I think that's totally fair. But I think where me and Evan are so frustrated is the reason today why they weren't good enough in the big spots was they imploded. They took dumb penalties and they were undisciplined. And Woolen and Love get beat over the top. There's just too many times where the pass rush isn't showing up. But if, again, Justin Jefferson beats Trey Brown, but they stop them on third down.
Exactly.
The guy lines up offside. I've never seen, and it's been, again, the Rams game was the same way, right? That's how they lost the Rams game. Same kind of story.
But here's the thing, Jeff, is like people say, oh man, like those NFC North teams, they're like so well coached and attention to detail. I kind of call bullshit on that because yes, that's true. Do you think that like coaching is the reason Trey Brown lined up offsides? Like that is, I've watched football for a long time. I've watched a lot of football games. I have never until today seen a cornerback offsides call ever.
Exactly. And it was legit.
And so when Mike McDonald talks about these lapses in focus that seem to be happening specifically at cornerback, those are killer. And those are players. And those are decisions that players are making. And look, Reek Woolen doesn't play on the first series. I don't know how much that had to do with them going down and getting that touchdown so easily. I don't think it had much to do with it, quite honestly.
No.
But I was okay with it. I was okay with that. I was okay if he didn't play at all today.
Yeah.
If that's what Coach McDonald thought was necessary, because these kinds of mistakes that are getting made, you're not just going to correct them by yelling at guys, or I wouldn't even raise your voice. I'd be like, you're not on the field. Like,
yeah.
That's how you handle it. And if you want to prove it, you got to prove it to us to get back out there. And so, yeah, I think my other reaction to this game, Jeff, and I'm a Geno Smith fan. Like, so
yeah.
Take this for what it's worth there. Going through this home season and hearing the fans around me, watching them, knowing how many people already, like especially casual fans, are already pretty down on Geno Smith and don't believe in him.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really tough sell to sign him. I think it almost, from a business perspective, not from a football perspective, from a business perspective, I think it would be a real hard sell to this casual fan base, the casual side of this fan base, to extend Geno Smith. I think they're pretty out on him.
Yeah, it's kind of what I've been saying all year. I just have really trouble evaluating him because even today his highs were really high. Like he made a lot of, like no one's kind of had that passing success, 3 touchdowns, 300 yards against Minnesota. No one really has done that this year. But the low moments and the lows, and the frequency we're seeing these lows are as bad as any play we can see from a quarterback. And like taking that sack at a field goal range on first down and the interception he throws on the run. Russell Wilson made the same interception yesterday, essentially. That was a pick 6. But if it was just one of them, but Geno's been doing this, some of these interceptions, and really like the lack of situational awareness. There was times, I think Evan said, where there was just multiple plays. There was that 3rd and 1 before the fake punt where they tried to throw the ball to Noah Fant, which was a perplexing play call in general. And Geno wasn't even close. I know he was off one leg at that point, but just the amount of situational mistakes and the amount of times they're taking pre-snap penalties. Oof. You're right. It's a hard sell. And like a lot of my buddies are Vikings fans in Toronto for whatever reason. And so they don't see Geno every week. They don't look at it like Griff does or some of these guys or Ben Solak who are so high on Geno, and they think Geno stinks and they think he's fine. They think the Seahawks ask him to do too much. And he's just, for me, he's such a hard player to evaluate because I don't know how they improve on him, but I'm not looking to extend this guy. I'm going to be honest. Like the amount of situational mistakes from a guy at this point of his career, when you're trying to kind of get out of this hole you're in, I think this is just who he is. And again, Geno has some really endearing qualities as a quarterback and really easy guy to root for, but he just like that interception, that's 3 points. Those are 3 huge points, and you just can't, and probably cost 6 points with that sack, but he also threw some incredible plays. But I know Evan came out and said he didn't play well. So, yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think the casual fan thinks Geno sucks.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard thing for management.
And I mean, part of that is like that last interception, that looks awful. If you watch that play and if you know anything about football, that was on DK.
That was on DK. Yeah.
That was on the route. And you heard it even in the Seahawks post-game show. Michael Bumpus did not want to say it. But he was like, that looked like a tired. I don't think he said lazy, but that was essentially the insinuation route. And Dan Orlovsky, I think, just came out with video breaking down the exact same thing, coming to the exact same conclusion. No casual fan is going to say, oh, that's on DK Metcalf. They're going to say DK Metcalf is the Greek god, and we love DK Metcalf. And I'm not sure that they're even wrong. Like, they're wrong about whose fault the interception was, because Geno ultimately throws that. He trusts his receiver, and he was wrong to do that. But when they've needed him this year, he has brought them back. He has had a number of game-winning touchdowns. But he's like, I mean, literally, Jeff, all season, if they get a short yardage situation or they get in the red zone, every Seahawks fan's like, oh, we're screwed.
Yeah.
I've never seen a season where if you have 3rd and 1 or you're inside the 5-yard line, that every fan is like, oh, we're in trouble. That's where we are this year.
When Barner scored that touchdown, we were 1st and goal from 3. I was cringing in my seat on TV. I couldn't watch it. And then they got stuffed on 1st and 2nd down. And I'm like,
yep.
Ugh. So
at least they ran it. I mean,
that
my God, like
idiotic. Ryan Grubb has to go. Like that's not crystal clear at this point. My God, his inability to mix the run in at basic levels is so infuriating. But yeah, like every time we get down in the red zone, I feel no confidence. That is so alarming. I think you tweeted that out during the game. Like,
well, and to the point, like, so just one quick thought on the Geno thing, and we'll keep going through this. That first interception, it wasn't the throw that was the issue. It was that he took too long, and this is what he's had in the red zone before. He tries to extend plays. He takes a half a second too long before he decides to plant and throw the ball away. And so he gets hit on that throw. It doesn't go where he wants to, and it gets picked. So it's not that it was that's a terrible throw. It looks like a terrible throw. It's a bad decision. It's bad judgment about how quickly to like leave no chance there that you are going to get hit. Like throw it before the guys get close to you. The same way you slide a yard or two before a guy hits you. Like, same situation. And at the same time, I was screaming before that play. I was like, run the ball. Run the ball. You've got, like, yes, they've got guys in the box. You have to run the ball here. And they don't. And so it is this combinatorial compounding effect of Ryan Grubb not being consistent he's being consistent. He's not committed at all to the run. And then you've got Geno Smith, who is very hesitant to give up on a play. And it makes for a really bad combination.
It's why they're so skittish.
If on 1st and 5, when they run that ridiculous play,
oh my God,
if they had run a pass play and it works, then you know what? Ryan Grubb gets to live another day. Ryan Grubb gets to tell us, look, you guys don't know what you're doing. 1st and 5 in that moment, in that field position, is a very advantageous passing down, and we're going to take advantage of it. Cool. But then you got to come through. And too often this year, he's not. So you can't abandon the run and not fool people with the pass. That is a terrible combination.
There was just so many times where it was so obvious, like the 1st and 5, sure, but they ran that orbit thing and they ended up losing about 4 yards on the play. They basically give back the penalty.
6 yards.
Yeah, 6 yards. They give back the penalty. And like there's just so many moments where they're in light boxes or they're not doing runs and they're moving the ball. Last week there were a bunch of moments too where they're starting to come back and there's obvious run situations. And again, you look at Charbonnet, he picks up that key 3rd and 10. He looked quick today, man. Like, he looked fast. He looked quicker than I saw. And like, it's crazy. I think you texted us this. It's crazy. I mean, you're demanding Charbonnet gets the ball, but I like how he looks, man. I think the way they've been and it was a day where pass pro was pretty good. And if they could marry the run and the pass, this is so close to being a good offense, but it feels so scattered. And it's like, it's so frustrating because JSN, again, like, he drops one that he definitely should have gotten, but there's 2 plays, could have been PI. Like, he looks like a game-breaking player. Like, my buddies who are Vikings fans are like, holy shit, this 11 is incredible. They're texting me that all game. Like, when you watch Walker get into space, they take a stupid penalty from Pharaoh Brown, where Pharaoh Brown gets his hands up. It had nothing to do with the play.
That was killer.
That was killer. Like, it was a big.
It wasn't even involved in the play.
No, he was already gone. The crease was big. But I think the thing that just beat me up is their second last touchdown drive, where they just move the ball at will down the field, and the run game gets them all the big chunks early.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start mixing in the pass, and you see how much flow and how smooth the offense looks. And then they get away from it again.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Well, let's talk about some of the other plays in this game that stick in my mind. Or moments in this game. You talk about Zach Charbonnet. Compare the difference between when Zach Charbonnet gets that 3rd down dump off and what he does with it and the direction he goes with it, and Kenneth Walker earlier in the game when they dump it down to him on 2nd down. This is before the interception, right? Like, isn't this immediately preceding the interception? And Kenneth Walker has miles in front of him. Just run straight ahead, dude. And you've got a 1st down almost for sure. If anything, you'll be just barely short. He chooses to try to beat the defender that's nearest to him in the direction of the defender. He doesn't even run away from him and ends up well short of the 1st down. Like, that play might have actually cost this team the game.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I could make the case that the sequence, the chain reaction of that decision from Kenneth Walker cost this team 7 points. So, Charbonnet for me was so decisive in this game. Kenny McIntosh was decisive in this game.
Yeah, he looked good.
Kenneth Walker was fine. I'm not anti Kenneth Walker, but someone's got to get in his ear about, dude, you got to just take the yards, man. And there was another play in this game, thanks to Ray Roberts, where he's shown us on Big Ray's Rewind, when you've got a play where all the linemen are blocking down and all their leverage is going in one direction and they're sealing in one direction, and you cut against that, and you give up all the leverage that those linemen have created. Basically, you're cutting to the defender's side of the blocker. So the defenders don't have to deal with the blocker. They just come off the block and tackle you. He did it again today. Yep. You can't do that. So it was frustrating in that regard. The other play that I was going to bring up was, not the play. The other situation was Kenneth Walker gets 11 yards on a 1st down carry. It was a beautiful run. Ryan Grubb does not call a running play to a running back for 3 series.
Yep.
2.5 series, I think it was. This wasn't even like, they were getting 2 or 3 yards, so stick with it. They were getting chunk yards, dude.
I'm just dumbfounded that after coming out of last game, what the talking point was in that second half when Howell was in, what the coach said, what basically any criticism of the OC was, and he goes back and does the same thing again. And it's like coming out of that Arizona game, and you saw, I said it again, and you saw today, there's something called complementary football. It's when the offense and the defense marries together. And what happened in Arizona, they look like a dominant team. And today, there's times where it's close, but when you're just giving up, you have a good possession on defense, and you come out and throw the ball 3 times, and the series is over, and they got to go back on the field. Like, the Seahawks defense held a lot of the second half, but we learned so much in that Arizona game. And I thought that was the click where everything kind of clicked. And they're so bad at this, and Grubb is so one-dimensional as a play caller. And again, it's so frustrating because if they were just an awful run game like they were at points, really before that Jets game where things started to click, like I get it to an extent. But in the last 2 games, they've looked good running the ball. And like their best game of the year was where they ran the shit out of it. They barely let Gino. The things were much easier for Gino. He was thrown to his outlets. It was a repeatable, sustainable offense. And for whatever reason, in a game where this could have been a big deal, they lost themselves again. And it's why they don't play complimentary football. They have the chance to run the ball to win the game, set up the tying field goal, decide to pass, they take a sack. They never can quite get back into it. And too many times a game, they're one-dimensional. And I thought this was a game where like Brian Flores and they're going to just destroy our pass protection.
Yeah.
That was not the story of the game at all. This game script really played well in Seattle's hands. And again, if they don't face mask the guy, they probably win the game. But the offense was just so frustrating. It's just so up and down. There just aren't a lot of teams that look like this where it's so obvious what they can do. And I know they don't have the greatest run blockers, but this was not a game where the offensive line got embarrassed like last week. They could have easily had 0 sacks in this game. And I'm just done with Ryan Grubb. Like I think it's Isaac Kimes. I think me and his brother. I think he was tweeting out some good stuff. Just take away from that game. It's just we can't keep forward with this guy.
That's where I was after the Packers game. I think that kind of declared itself in that game. And I think you make a good point about the pass protection. You could have told me a bunch of different game scripts for this game that I would have believed. But one where pass protection's not the problem.
Not at all.
Was not one of the things I thought was realistic. Between Gino being less mobile than you would expect and than you want to be with him being hobbled, and then the Vikings having a much better pass rush and much better options than the Packers or the Cardinals, who've both given the Seahawks trouble in pass rush. And it wasn't because the Vikings weren't bringing some pressure. There was definitely times they were sending extras and they were getting picked up. And Gino it wasn't like the cleanest pocket. It wasn't this beautiful thing, but he was not getting immediate pressure where he had no chance to make a play. That was impressive. Like Scott Huff deserves a little bit of praise where maybe Ryan Grubb deserves a little bit of, blame.
Yeah, that felt like I think Evan asked us last night, like, gun to your head, like, what do you think the score is going to be? And we all thought it was going to be a blowout. And I think that's why I'm so frustrated, because it wasn't a blowout. I think that being the game script flipping that way, that felt like a 5% outcome that they would be able to hold up in pass protection with an injured Gino against that defense, and they'd be able to get 300 yards passing and 3 touchdowns and take the lead in the fourth quarter and almost drive back into field goal range. No, and that's where I feel like they just pissed this game away again. And it feels like the Rams game again, where they were the better team, in my opinion, and they let Justin Jefferson beat them.
Oh, man. The Rams are so lucky, dude.
They stunk again today. They were awful.
I mean, they're just not a good team. And I'm sure people are going to be like, oh, they're so whatever. I don't care about the Rams.
Awful today. I watched that whole game.
Yeah, they're not a good team.
No.
But I want to add a couple other things that are kind of in the vein of the offensive line, I think deserving a little bit of credit, and Scott Huff deserving a little bit of credit. I thought they did well today. I thought Kenny McIntosh did well with his opportunities today.
Yeah,
I did think Zach
was great.
Yeah, I thought Zach Charbonnet did well. I thought that once again, AJ Barner, with the chances he had, made an impact. With the catches and the run after the catch, the physicality. Pharaoh Brown had a terrible penalty, but that catch, I did not know he had that in his game. So congratulations early on for Pharaoh Brown making a pretty tough catch in the rain. DK Metcalf, early in the first half, he had 2 contested catches. Those weren't easy catches. Like, if we could get more of that from him, my God, he got out-muscled in, what would have been another interception later on a fade route that he got. Gilmore totally owned him.
Right sideline, yeah.
Yep. And then on slant, like the whole reason you run a slant to a guy DK Metcalf size is his body. He should be able to hold people off. He never seems to hold people off on those.
No, he got crushed on that road.
But then Noah Fant also
He had some good spots.
had some nice moments today, carried some tacklers. I liked what I saw from Noah Fant. And then I would throw in there like the rush defense steadied itself. It started off poorly again, but they ended up giving up, 81 yards on 24 carries, 3.4 yards per carry. And it felt like it became something that they could count on. And that was nice to see. So there were some aspects. I thought Jaron Reed had a really nice game.
Oh, he was awesome today.
Really nice game. I thought Kobe Bryant had a fantastic run support play up at the line of scrimmage. He just flew to the line. Nice play. Boye Mafe had a nice, important sack today. So, yeah, there was a lot of things that were not good. But there were some encouraging individual aspects of this game. And I think overall, for me, the defense not taking the ball away. There was a number of times the defense could not get pressure on Sam Darnold, despite the fact that offensive line is not that good.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel like the offense outperformed my expectations, even with all the criticisms we've have, and the defense underperformed my expectations, given all the things. That's where I end up in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just so frustrating because they should have closed that game out. But it's just the little things matter in football, and the little things bit them today. Like I thought Reek got beat on so many big spots. There's a couple out routes on fourth down. There's other things. The Trey Brown plays just awful. Julian Love not helping over the top in cover 2. Ernest Jones. I don't know if I'm going to crush him too much for dropping that ball, but like, man.
Oh, that was pretty hard, wasn't it?
It's a hard catch. He's falling down and he trips. It's just, again, outside of Leonard Williams and Jaron Reed, not enough greatness today. Not enough greatness.
We've probably gone long enough that we can say this. The reffing in this game?
Shit.
I mean, how is that not DPI on JSN along the sideline when the guy is like hanging on him, pulling him to the ground? I was like, this is an easy call. The sideline seemed to think it was an easy call, and it didn't even seem like he was thinking about throwing a flag on that. I was like, what the hell, dude?
It's funny, Evan and Josh thought it wasn't, but I watched the slow motion replay they showed on the broadcast.
His arm was
and
like
his arm
this.
is like this, and the Vikings ESPN writer was like, I guess they thought he threw it too far at a
Yeah.
And there's the one in the middle of the field I thought was PI, like 50-50 chance there, but I thought that was PI. He got there early. He took his arm down. He like ripped his arm down. And even Mark Sanchez was like, well, I guess he had to escape his arm. That's a lot of yards they took away from him. That's probably another 60 yards for JSN that they took off the board. They probably score one of those at least. And even on the touchdown play, there's not a great screenshot of Derek Hall being blatantly held. I don't know if you saw that. The left tackle blatantly holds him. And it's
Which
right after
play was
the
this?
face mask. The Justin Jefferson.
After the face mask?
Like, you look at Cam Robinson, and he's got him, like, wrapped around by the neck. Like,
yeah.
I saw it in real time. And there was a couple other ones. What's the other penalty that got me really mad? Oh,
the holding penalty on Leonard Williams?
yes. The second, that was huge. It should have been 2nd and 11. Leonard Williams is called for defensive holding on a run play. Had nothing to do with the play, first of all. He wasn't holding him. It screwed up the whole sequence of the down, and I was fuming. I think they got a field goal on that drive. That was very irritating. So, look, Seattle self-destructed. They didn't deserve to win based on a lot of things me and you talked about. But once again, like when the ESPN beat writer of the Vikings was like, well, that was a surprising non-call.
The refs I thought had some really bad calls in this game. I'm not saying that's the reason they lost or anything. Like, we're half an hour into this before we even get to that, but I had to bring it up because it was it was atrocious, some of those non-calls in this game, or some of the calls that were made.
I saw.
What did you think about the
Byron
decision?
Murphy. Yeah.
Sorry, go. Wait, what were you gonna say?
I saw Byron Murphy say the face mask was a bullshit call.
I wish he was right.
It was.
I don't think he's right.
I know. I hate that play.
Yeah.
Not by Murphy. I just hate it where like the play is dead. Like the face mask has nothing to do with anything. Like all you have to do is just wrap him up and they're gonna blow the whistle. Like he's not gonna escape Byron. Well, maybe Byron. He's got short arms, but
I thought it was a totally legitimate call, and I think it did affect the play. He grabbed his head and pulled it down.
Yeah, no. That needs to be coached. You cannot wrap the guy by the helmet. Just take him out by the legs. Like,
dude,
I hate it. I hate when that happens.
So loud on that series when the Seahawks finally took the lead, and like that's part of why I really hang a lot of this on the defense. They had everything behind them in that moment, and yeah, that one play, that's typically what will happen in those moments. It had a false start, like. And
they had the game. If they sack them there, it's game over, and that's the killer.
Probably. And it's just a shame. I mean, he obviously has really been searching for those moments all year. It would have been a great moment.
It was such a nice play to get into the backfield. He did the exact play we've been waiting all year. He blew by the guy.
Yeah. Ugh. What did you think about the decision to go for the 60-yard field goal?
I thought it was.
What would you have done on 4th and 15 there?
I would have kicked.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought 4th and 15 was such a low percentage play. But I think the odds were better with the field goal. I was so distraught at that moment from the Geno sack. I couldn't think straight, but I think the odds are probably better to kick there. And Myers hit a hell of a kick. But in that weather, it's probably. What about you?
I mean, I was a little surprised that, I don't think there was a right or wrong. I personally didn't have a strong feeling. I was just curious if you did. I have seen so many games in that stadium. That is the direction towards the Hawk's Nest where field goals go to die. Like I don't think I've ever seen a field goal over like 53 yards in that direction. It's just, I don't know, because it's the open end of the stadium or whatever, but they just
on TV, it looked like dead on, and they're like, it's good. Oh
no, it wasn't even close.
I know
it wasn't even close. I think it landed 10 yards short.
Those 5 yards that Geno gave up there, man. I think he hits it. If it's 55.
Maybe. I mean, would have been amazing.
I'm sure Myers would have found a way to blow it somehow. But
I want to give some credit to Sam Darnold. That was a hell of a throw on the game-winning touchdown, man.
He had a good game. He had a really good game. He escaped a bunch of stuff. He didn't put the ball in harm's way. He was on the move. I was going to ask you, like, I don't know if he's going to be getting out of Minnesota, but, like, is he your guy you're interested in if they do walk from Geno?
Absolutely. I just don't know exactly how that works out. And
no, I think they're going to end up keeping him there. But
the part that's kind of curious is, well, I don't think they're going to keep him there. I think they're going to let him go. Maybe they'll keep him and then trade him. Like that might make some sense. But I think they're going to go to McCarthy. But I think it's so hard to tell how much of what's happening is Geno and how much of it's Ryan Grubb and how much of it's Sam Darnold and how much of it's Kevin O'Connell. Like it's just hard.
It's very hard. Like
when I watch Sam Darnold, he looks like a guy that is making good decisions on a regular basis. And he is the version of Geno Smith that I think Geno can be, where he's making some excellent throws that very few quarterbacks can make. And then he's not making the stupid plays. Geno this year just has not been able to do that. And if I look at it, he had that in 2022. He had a season very much like what Sam Darnold's having. Even better, actually. More like same amount of touchdowns or similar touchdowns, fewer interceptions.
Yeah,
but
it's just what I like about the Vikings. It's just like the timing of their routes on so many plays. It's just like easy throw to Jefferson, easy throw to Addison, Hawkinson. And
how much do you think that is the quarterback, the coach and play call, or the receivers?
A combination of all three. The receiver, you start with the receivers. Those receivers.
You do have to, right?
Those guys are excellent. Just like the amount of plays, like there's a 4th down early in the game, and there's the big spot. It was a big 3rd down where they just run where Jefferson just beats their guy. And Addison beats their guys on comebacks, but like some of those out routes they were attacking Woolen on. There's a play where Darnold comes up to the line. I don't know if you could see this on TV. I mean, on the game, they show the replay of this where he goes like this, basically saying Jefferson run an out route. It was 3rd and 7. It was a big spot.
Yeah, I remember
Jefferson
the exact
just
play.
crushed Woolen on that route.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with Darnold for making that adjustment. But again, I talked about it yesterday on our show and our Saturday show. Infrastructure for a quarterback matters a lot. And that's the hardest thing. I think Geno really, the receivers on paper look pretty good. And we talked about this yesterday, but their infrastructure is a mess right now. Their plays look so hard. Their plays
Are we
look
being
difficult.
too easy on DK Metcalf? Like,
Yes.
we've seen enough that Ryan Grubb's got to probably go. Have we seen enough that DK Metcalf, like, can you give this guy with the decisions he's making, the errors he's making in these moments, and the lack of ability to win when you need him to win? I think I'm out on paying him $33 million a year, dude.
He's not worth the money. I'm still conflicted in how you replace him because they're going to need 2 starting receivers next year if you do. But he's not worth the money. Like, you can't. I don't think you can get better as a team putting more money into that player when situational errors between him and Geno are just at an issue. They got to pay. They got to figure out what to do at quarterback. That's the situation coming to a head. Their offensive line, they obviously don't trust enough to run block. Have some big decisions elsewhere. Ernest Jones are going to have to pay. I'm not comfortable paying him $30+ million.
I'm not either, man. I think I'm out. And it's you and I've talked about even just yesterday how hard this is of a decision to make. But I think I think where I'm at is out on Grubb. I think I'm out on DK. And I think you do not extend Geno Smith. I think you make Geno play his final year. I don't think you can trade Geno Smith. I don't think there's anyone that's going to give you anything for him. I think it's unlikely you're going to be able to bring someone in that's better.
No.
So I think you make Geno play his final year, and you got to be ready to have a solution at quarterback by 2026. I think that's where you're at, and that means wide receiver becomes a need.
It does. It's just the situational, the attention to detail that matters so much in this league. It matters so much in this league. And again, we talk about Green Bay as like the example of they moved on from their highly priced receiver. They respread that money. They got a bunch of cheap receivers, a bunch of 2nd rounders, 5th rounders. They've not slowed down and they've become a more complete offense. And again, with Geno and DK, they've got to have a plan to replace these guys. They can't just be like, well, we know he's not worth the money. Let's trade him. Because we saw what happened with Frank Clark. They had no plan to replace him. They got a great return on him in the trade, and they spent years chasing that position. And it was a roster-building F-up. Like, they screwed it up. So I'm all in on moving him if they can have a plan to replace him and reallocate that money, because you're paying someone, and the best teams have their best players or their best leaders, and they set the example. And we talked about when they were great with Sherman and Bobby and Doug Baldwin and Marshawn and all those guys. We weren't seeing lapses of attention to detail and too many big players on this team. And with Geno, it's not attention to detail issues. It's situational awareness. The situational awareness at this point of his career, or really any point of his career, if he's a rookie, he's making mistakes that a 2nd-year player should be making, like a 1st-year player. At this point, it's unacceptable. Like, Geno's doing good things. But DK, again, it details. We're winning routes. All the best players in the league aren't doing stuff like this. And it's killing them. Between Woolen and DK, I think those are the most polarizing players on the team. What they're going to do with those guys going forward. They're right now, I'd say they're their 2 best talents. And I think they're better in terms of individual talent. They are being a part of a winning football team.
Yeah. I always want to be careful, especially in these post-game moments, and we'll wrap up here in a second. But if I'm saying the quiet part out loud, I don't think DK Metcalf is part of the solution here. I don't think Rick Woolen is part of the solution here. And that's a pretty big deal. I could probably go on from there, but those two are pretty tectonic roster changes if you're going to make those. And it's not easy to find guys that can. Those are two of your best athletes, maybe your two best athletes.
No, those are
on the
your
entire
two best
team.
athletes. Yeah. We went into this year thinking both those guys were going to be kind of supersonic, and new coaching staff, same issues.
And it's not because of talent, and it's not
Their talent
because
is excellent.
of even like production level things. You've got Reek Woolen breaking team rules before, or like something that caused him to not play in the first series. This is the biggest game of the year, a must win, and you're pulling that. And you've got DK making critical mistakes at the ends of games multiple times that contribute to your team losing, whether it's fumbles, bad routes that cause interceptions, and he's not the guy that when you really need him, he's not winning.
No.
And when you needed Reek Woolen to win today, he wasn't winning.
Nope.
I think that's, if I'm really thinking about the next 3 years, Jeff, I'm like, maybe it's addition by subtraction to say, get some of those types of personalities out of the room and bring in new blood. I think it's a huge risk. Not saying
it's a massive risk.
Huge risk. But I think you almost have to think about doing that.
Yeah. I think the problem with where the Seahawks are is they're in that good but not good enough, barely good, even mediocre, high level. I think they're in the high level of mediocrity. I think they're the top tier of mediocrity right now. And how do you get out of that cycle? You have to take some sort of risks. You're going to have to hit on the draft, but those are two guys that are their best athletes on the team. They're their best talents. They're the guys that we're really hoping become those all-pro, Pro Bowlers. Well, they don't seem like they've progressed. And they haven't regressed. You can make a case Woolen has regressed over the course of this year. Gino's been hurt. I mean, DK's been hurt, but his production is way down. But other than those like deep balls over the top this year, we're not seeing DK win in different ways. And he's really good at what he does, but he's a limited player. And if you pump more money, what does it say to the rest of the team? How do you solve that problem? This is a big thing for Mike Macdonald, and they're going to have to answer these questions in the offseason because they're trying to set a program. They're trying to set a tone. You don't seem to see those guys in a lot of Harbaugh programs. Like they got rid of Deontay Johnson last week. Mm-hmm. They seem to be a big team-first mentality there. And on a lot of good teams, it's okay to have what I would call – I don't think DK's a knucklehead. I think maybe there's a case Woolen is. But it's okay to have some knuckleheads if they show up on game day. Like Lawrence Taylor used to party till 7 a.m, show up the next day, and it's probably the top 3 defensive player of all time, maybe the best. So you can live with that if they're knuckleheads. Michael Irvin was a crazy man, but the guy with one of the most productive players in NFL history. You can't have a knucklehead that's making detail mistakes time and time again. Those are players on losing teams. Those are not winners. Mike Macdonald, I know we talked about this earlier, it doesn't really matter because they're not that good. So games like this, I think it really illuminates some of the big decisions they're going to have to make going forward.
Yeah, it's good stuff, Jeff. I mean, and just to be clear on the DK Metcalf stuff, if he was a problem in the locker room or he had other issues, like let him be even easier. But I think people do respect that he blocks, that he doesn't complain when he doesn't get the ball like a lot of diva receivers do. He is willing to do some of the dirty work and take coverage away so JSN can do some of what he's been doing. JSN went for 180 yards with DK not playing.
Yeah.
So let's not pretend that JSN is wholly a product of DK Metcalf taking away coverage. But the point being that DK Metcalf has done enough that it is hard to say, like, this guy's bad for your team. It's just that for you to pay that kind of money, I feel like you got to be sure that this is the guy that is going to grow into that contract. If you know from the start that he hasn't yet produced that level of performance, how often does that actually work out?
Yeah, like 6 years into his career, all of a sudden the light bulb goes off. I think DK, he is what he is, and he's a good player. He's absolutely a good player. He's a valuable player. He's in his tier one of the better players for what he does. But when you're paying someone 30, it's all about price point. If you're paying someone $30 million, they got to be elite, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst thing you could do is pay good players elite money. You can't escape that. We talked about that with quarterbacks yesterday. That crushes your roster building. And especially on a team that does have holes and they do have some other outlays they have to deal with. So we don't want to, like, coming out of this game, like, I'm still just crushed that Byron Murphy thing, but DK's low on my list of issues. They pissed away that game. Trey Brown, man, really got me that one today. But they should have won that game. But I think if you're looking big picture, I think it's a totally fair. And really, there's some people in the fan base who's like, you guys are morons for talking about this. But I think a lot of executives are wondering, which is why that Schefter tweet came out randomly at the trade deadline. I think this is going to be a big conversation.
I think send him to Pittsburgh, let him play with Russ.
Yeah.
He'd be happy about it.
I think that'd be a great spot.
Get a first and a third back for him. I think that you could
if you get a first and a third, I'm running into that deal.
I think that you could potentially do that and go get someone else. We got a bunch of super chats. I will say the highlight of my day was running into somebody at the last part of the game who was there with his little son, who was like, "Wait, are you Brian? I got the tickets from you guys through your registry." So like 70,000 people ran into some people that got tickets through the registry. So that was cool. Troy says, traveled 8,000 miles for that. Season is over, right? Well, not quite, but if the Cardinals do not beat the Rams, then yes, it is over. Jackson Knight, been a member for 8 months. Amazing. Says, this game was not lost because of the run-pass split. We suck at running. 15 carries for only 3.9 yards per carry. Minnesota's weakness is pass defense. Totally fine split. I don't know if I agree about this. It's not about the split. It's about when you decide to deploy one play versus another. And I think whatever Minnesota's defense has been against the run, the Seahawks were succeeding in this game early, and they went away from it. And in fact, the last 3 games, Minnesota's given up 142.5 yards rushing per game. So they have not been as strong against the run recently. Primo says, is it me or Tariq Woolen look lost? Yeah, we talked about that. So I hear you, Primo. There's times he just looks like he's not totally dialed in. Moshi Moss says, I'm not mad, but I'm so sad. Equally as sad for all the 12s who went to home games this season. 3-6 at home. JSN will learn his 3rd offense in 3 years. Yeah, he'll be fine. Devin Hoover says, DK runs lazy routes and Woolen seems to not care. I think we would agree with some of that. Nelgod says, Seahawks defense blew it. End of story. Jones drops the interception. It's interesting. From what I saw in the game, that looked like a very hard interception. You guys are making it sound like it was a pretty
No, he's falling backwards like this, and he lost his balance. He tripped. It's a hard catch. Okay. Nelgod, you're my boy. We talk all the time, but, dude, you got to call a spade a spade. Like, every game, you're like, Joe Burrow sucks. Gino blew the game today, like, straight up. Defense definitely did not do enough at the end of the game, but, like, come on, man. Like, blaming that on Ernest Jones, like, he's a defensive player, first of all. They don't have good hands. Like, he's falling on the ground. It was a bad throw. There's a million little things I'd put out before that game. Like,
yeah, I agree with that. Not about Gino blowing the game. I do think Gino absolutely contributed to the loss, but Jose Rodriguez says Gino and Woolen can go. I think that a lot of people are in that camp. Troy back again says Woolen warming inside of the helmet in front of heater during TV timeout out while rest of team on field says it all. I didn't see this. Did you see this?
Didn't see that. I'm done with that guy.
Nelgod's back. He says, hope Gino moves on and dominates while we suck. He deserves way better. Lack of respect from this fan base is laughable. I don't know, man. Like, for me, end of the day, like, I'm a huge Geno Smith fan. I'm a Seahawks fan first and foremost. I will never cheer for the Seahawks to do poorly. And for, it's like people that were Russell Wilson fans over the Seahawks fans. I always want the Seahawks to do well. And as a Geno supporter, Gino's made tons of inexcusable mistakes this year that were within his control to not make. That's on him. That's on nobody else. And the best quarterbacks in football can play the fine line and balance on the fine line between taking a risk to make a big play and protecting their team. And too often, Geno just does not make the right decision in a split second, and it costs his team. So, like, you got to acknowledge it and not fight it. I came into the season hoping, like, man, if Geno could check the ball down a little bit more, if Geno could be willing to throw the ball away, part of the reason I was excited in training camp is Ryan Grubb seemed to have so many answers for Geno Smith in this offense where he could get rid of the ball quickly. That has just gone by the wayside. We saw it early today. There was a swing pass to Kenneth Walker. There's like throws in the flat that every other offense has, these easy yards for 6-7 yards. Too often Geno doesn't take those or Ryan Grubb doesn't give them. So, I wish the best for Geno Smith no matter what. I don't hope that he shows us how good we had it. Like, that's absurd. Adam the Islandson says our offense looks like our defense last year. I don't know if I agree. It's not that bad. I mean, our defense was like last in the league, right?
Yeah, I'm going to strongly disagree with that take. Our offense this year is spotty, but you see moments of like really good play, and there's some things they do really well. JSN, look at the tank he's been on. There's not a single player on defense who played well last year.
Yeah.
I think
our offense, if it was as good as if our defense last year was as good as our offense this year, we would have been thrilled.
Yeah. There's some weird takes. Like I saw someone blaming Jason Myers after the game. Like we're paying a kicker. Why can't he make that was a 60-yard kick in bad weather. Geno did a lot of cool stuff today. But again, quarterbacks are ultimately judged based on what they do at the end of the games. Geno leads the league in game-winning drives of last year. It's a huge box. We talked about infrastructures yesterday. I think Geno's working with a pretty shitty infrastructure, but the situational awareness in big spots is too low right now. And I think he had moments today and moments in the Rams game that ultimately is going to cost the team 2 of the games they should have won. And find me another quarterback that's doing that right now.
Yeah.
And again, Grubb, the O-line, all this stuff is real. Geno's going uphill. But you can't live in denial. You got to call a spade a spade. I'm not saying you need to cut Geno tomorrow.
No.
I talked about it yesterday. They should keep him. Who do you replace him with? But find me a quarterback that's doing that right now. I don't see one.
Yeah. Brian Donnan says, love you guys. Y'all speak the truth. I crave these therapy sessions after frustrating games. Well, we're glad we can help in some way. I think we all would appreciate not having to have therapy sessions with a win. Moshi Moss says, extend DK if he can play guard too. Well, his dad certainly was an offensive lineman, so who knows? But Jeff, any closing thoughts before I let you go for the night?
Well, I don't know how many of these I have left. So there's only 2 games left. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that they didn't win that game. I'm frustrated they went 3-6 at home. I'm frustrated that I do like what Mike McDonald's doing, but they didn't really progress that much after that important stretch. It just sucks. That's a good team over there. They didn't play great today, and they should have won that game. And so to lose that game at home in a game where the crowd did seem good, it sucks. And the Seahawks are in that, again, the high level of purgatory we're trying to get out of. And feels like the season, even though it was probably over last week, feels like the Rams are going to beat the Cardinals next week, and then the season's probably over. So that sucks. It's been an interesting year, but this team is not good enough, like you said, to start with. I think that was the fairest thing we said all day, and we all want this team to be at a place where we're all excited to go to these games. They're 7-2 at home, something like that. So I think year one of McDonald was intriguing, but they need to get better. They need to get better. They need to improve the coaching staff, the players, and let's not be in denial. Let's talk reality. Let's face these problems in the head.
The thing that I will say is take some solace in the fact that your head coach has proven, if nothing else this year, he's not going to put up with bullshit. He got rid of almost his entire defense during the season and turned it from one of the worst units in the NFL to a top 10 group. This is not, there's moments where it's like, hey, man, let's see if they're a top 5 group. They're not a top 5 group. They're not. But they're a top 10 to 12 group, I think, pretty solidly right now. And that's good. He told Rick Woolen to take a seat when he wasn't performing. He has shown time and again, like, you look at the offensive line, they actually sat guys, you know, Christian Haynes, who was a higher draft pick. Like, I think that we can take some solace in the fact that I think Mike McDonald is going to hold a high bar, and he's just fixated on making this team great. And I think he's got a pretty good idea of what's keeping them from being great. I'm really interested to see what he's willing to move on from. Coaches, players, other things, and what he changes in his first offseason. I think he's going to work his ass off this offseason. And I really am interested to see what this team becomes after he has a full offseason to help address some of the issues on this team. But for now, disappointing loss. Seahawks fall to 8-7. They are 3-6 at home, and they no longer control their destiny and most likely will not be going to the playoffs. So I will be heading to Chicago later this week to watch that game. Very tough to turn around from this game and head to Chicago on a short week. I don't envy the fellas at all, but they will do it, and we will see what comes of that. Jeff, thank you so much for taking time. Always good to have you. Make sure you follow him at Real Jeff Simmons. I'm Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on TikTok and all sorts of other places at Hawk Blogger. Make sure you give the show a like and click subscribe. And it's not too late, folks. If you haven't already for your holidays, use code HawkBlogger. Get 10% off the best boots you will ever own from JK Boots. Washington made, family owned, in Spokane. And these, we're like, I think 1 or maybe 2 sales away from giving away another pair of boots to the Wildland Firefighters Foundation, so a Northwest firefighter can have the footwear he or she needs to keep our forests safe. So not only that, but you get a chance to win this amazing Seahawks-themed pair of boots. These are gorgeous and very cool, and you'll be the only person on the planet that has them. So use code HawkBlogger, get your 10% off, get someone or someone you love the best boots they'll ever have. All right. Until next time, folks, thank you so much to everybody who's tuned in. Sorry we didn't have more fun than we wanted to today, but at least they were competitive. That's the bar we're at. So take care. Have a great rest of your Sunday.